Hi everyone, welcome to Starsight. Today we are going to channel some messages about your communication style. Now I know that we generally think of this kind of stuff as an aspect of our personality, and we tend to derive a lot of self-satisfaction from listening to things that describe us. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just mentioning it to say that in this reading, my purpose is to help us understand ourselves better. And so, through a description of your communication style, I want to get at something of your inner world, but also perhaps something of your soul energy that might be getting expressed through your communication style or actually getting buried through it, or a combination. Yeah. So I want to use the discussion about your communication style as a way to get deeper into your inner and spiritual worlds. Okay. So see which pile calls to you, and I will see you at your reading. Alright, pile 1. Giraffe spirit, see the big picture. Extremely wise, gentle energy here. I feel like even when you do see something of others, basically when you have an insight into other people or their problems, you don't seem to be the kind of person who will offer that uninvited, unsolicited. You will keep that in your own heart until you are specifically invited to contribute to the discussion. Extremely humble energy here, though the level of wisdom is very deep. Partly you have cultivated this wisdom through silence, by observing things from your vantage point. Is that correct? Vantage point. You also have a lot of empathy and love for others. It's really genuine. Even if someone is acting out of shadow, you're able to witness that. You're able to say that in yourself, this person is acting out of shadow, without decimating them, even in your mind, which is really hard, right? Because yes, I can be conscious about not making the other person feel bad, but in my head, it's very easy to think, oh, what a person, oh, what a stupid thing they're doing, or that's hateful, or that's really messed up. It's very easy for us, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to have negative opinions about other people, but you seem to be the kind of person who doesn't. You genuinely don't have a negative opinion about other people's shadows, which is just, it's incredible. Okay, it's incredible. So your communication style feels laid back. It feels very measured. You also feel like a loner, where you just, you are in your own world, embedded in this one, but not exactly entangled. So even with your work, you could be pretty much, it could be work where you're mostly involved with your own inner world. I think you've understood something really essential, pile 1, about life, especially about human life. Like, you understand that we end up using each other relentlessly. even if it's a good use. Just everyone in our lives, for most humans, we see them through the lenses of our needs. We see them through the lenses of what we would like them to be. Even when we are judging other people, we are still deriving some kind of pleasure, some kind of self-satisfaction, some kind of use out of other people's bad deeds or out of other people's deeds in general. And you have minimized that use of others in your own life. So clearly, like, you've been working on this through lifetimes, because this is not something that one can just achieve. You have cultivated this wisdom through lifetimes about the fact that we use people around us, we use beings around us, and that that's inevitable. But the ingenious solution that you've come up with is to minimize that. It's not the principle of I'm not going to harm anyone. It's the principle of I'm going to reduce the harm that I may cause to others. I feel so moved by the very grounded, simple way in which your guides are communicating to me the wisdom that you have amassed. Though even that word feels wrong, because it's not like a capitalist accumulation of wisdom. It's really something that you've lived. And you have reached this particular incarnation understanding that emptiness is the truth of life. Shedding is the truth of life. And you've been shedding. You could also be someone who is very minimalistic in terms of your possessions, like you don't have lots and lots and lots of things. You just buy as much as you need, you keep as much as you need, and whatever you keep, your attachment to those things, it's real and it's nourishing. So attachments by themselves are not bad, but it's again like the decimating quality of attachments that could distort our view of things. And whatever you have in your life in terms of relationships, things, even your relationship to your own work, it's all, the attachment is real and nourishing. It's beautiful. To come back to our question though about your communication style, it's like your communication style is say what is needed. Nothing more, nothing less. Clear, direct, but very gentle. You're not one of those people who think that if it's the truth, sometimes it has to be brutal. That's not your approach at all. Because again, you have this abiding compassion for all beings. My God, this is so beautiful. So now, pile 1, please treat this as your energy check. Like, if everything I've said so far, if it doesn't describe you, this may not be your pile, right? And if it does, well, welcome on this channel. I am so honored to be in your energy, to be feeling it, to be communicating with your guides. Right. Let's see something of your inner world. The Earth Keeper. Yeah. Protective and oriented in the sacred worth of all things that live. Flow. The spiral. Yeah, absolutely. Pile 1, you understand that everything is connected. You are rooted in in an experience of oneness. You understand that everything is a mirror view of each other. Like whatever you are seeing is a mirroring of your inner world. Whatever other people are seeing is a mirroring of their inner world. And it doesn't mean that there's no objective reality, but it's just that it's so out of reach. And also our inner perceptions, they interact with this reality, right? To the point that sometimes it is really true that in a practical sense, there is no objective reality to grasp at. It's only inner realities playing with each other. Because you understand this, you are able to distance yourself from your own perception, from your own ideas, from your own thoughts. Like you give them their space in the scheme of things, but it's not something that you take literally. This is what allows you to communicate from a place of patience. This is what allows you to communicate from a place of wisdom, because there's no urgency. It's not like I feel anger, I have to immediately say it. It's not like I see this other person acting in shadow and I have to immediately say it. This is something that I face as a problem within myself. I experience a lot of urgency in communicating because my needs are tied up with whatever it is that I want to communicate. The urgency doesn't come from concern for others, it's more about me. You have really learned to manage this very well, because you have learned to witness your needs on their own terms. You do not use your communicative space with others to fulfill your needs, your emotional needs. In fact, I think this is you're clearly someone who's been working on this for lifetimes, yeah? So you have this really wonderful balance between your emotional body, your practical offerings to the world, and your abiding sense of oneness with everything that is. It's not that your inner world is always peaceful. It's not that you never have negative emotions. It's that you know what to do when they come up. You know how to move through them. So perhaps you rarely communicate with others. When you're going through something difficult, you adopt silence. You might be someone who practices periods of silence, who takes vows of silence. Absolutely beautiful here, Pile 1. Part of this life, this incarnation, sorry, I'm gonna restart that sentence. Part of your purpose in this lifetime is modeling for others your belief in the sacredness of everything that is. It's not about saying it constantly. A lot of us do that. We say it constantly, but we don't act according to that. In our minds, we are still judging others. In our minds, we are still, seeing others as good or bad, or higher or lower than us, not you. But it's not about you communicating that to others at the level of words, or even constantly making them feel a particular way. It's not about others at all. You model that sacredness for others in the way that you just are, in the way that you live, in how you offer yourself to others, and how you retreat when you understand that this is not about me. Now, I'm moving through these cards quicker than I would because I just feel like you have it down. If you're listening to this, it's mostly like a confirmation. I don't think I'm telling you anything that you don't already know. Let's see here, some connection between your communication style and your soul energy. The entrance stone, new beginning, step forward, expansion. Lay it on the altar, hand it over, soften, surrender, forgive. I'm going to butcher this word, the Kalik, elder, teacher, wise one, experience. Exactly. You are the elder here, pile 1. You have achieved elder status here. And you've done that through a lot of discipline and hard work, hard spiritual work. You know, it's beautiful because, I mean, it's beautiful in a lot of ways, but one of the beautiful things about your energy is that you're both individual and also merged into the oneness of all that is. You've figured out that balance between acting as yourself and knowing always that one is part of something bigger, that one is part of everything that is. This work of balancing in yourself, this work of empathy for everything that breathes, everything that has life, everything that doesn't also, this work could have begun after an incarnation where you were particularly violent to others, where it had been difficult for you to not harm others, or you could have been in an energy that was very selfish, very self-oriented. You know, it could also be, sorry about that, it could also be that there was an incarnation where you were very heavily involved in exploiting the earth. And for some reason, either in that, within the terms of that incarnation, or afterwards, it was so extreme, pile 1, that it just shifted you completely. You decided at some point that this must never happen again. What the difficult journey that you've undertaken at the level of the soul is not just cultivate wisdom about others, not just cultivate compassion, but also to forgive yourself. Where does your compassion come from? It comes from your compassion for your own past self that did not know better, that did things that were really difficult for you to accept and understand, but you did. You worked on forgiving yourself. You worked on having compassion for yourself. You worked on not judging yourself even as you made massive changes in you. You cultivated neutrality towards yourself. That is the living source of your compassion, neutrality, empathy, and love for others. This is a lifetime of massive spiritual expansion, because this lifetime you're living it. You're living the wisdom that you've cultivated over different incarnations. I don't even think you're someone who consciously works with their guides, because I feel like you're so in sync with your higher self. It's like you don't even need that kind of mediation. You're just in sync with your higher self, with your soul energy. One thing that I feel like, the first thing that I feel like I'm being asked to relay to you, pile 1, is that you might be feeling some pressure to offer this wisdom to others in a professional sense or in a more widespread sense, in a, like, do something that other people can receive in a collective way, like maybe give some talks or write a book, etc. I think, though, like, communicate, I guess, your wisdom. People in your life might have said to you, you like, whenever they talk to you, they receive so much from you, from your perspective, that they might have been saying to you, you need to do that. You need to serve the collective in a much more explicit way, like write a book, do some talks, like organize some classes. I think instinctively for you, though, none of that sounds right. And the message that I'm being asked to relay to you is that you can trust your instincts here. There are lots of ways in which we can teach others, and your way in this incarnation is to model it. It's not so much about writing a book. It's not so much about, putting your thoughts in like a form, like 3 principles to follow when you're dealing with others. It's not that kind of a thing. It's wisdom that is living and breathing and spontaneous and in the moment. Okay. So your instinct is correct there to just do what you're doing, live your wisdom, and whoever needs to learn from that will be drawn to your orbit in their own organic way. That's your message, Pile 1. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sending you a lot of love. Pile 2. Brown Bear Spirit. Take time out. In this deck, this card is not negative at all. Okay, it's not negative. However, energetically, I feel like this is someone who is defensive. Partly you're defensive because you could experience very solid aggression within yourself towards others. And you may have learned to manage that by becoming quiet, by becoming withdrawn. So when you get really angry, or when you're truly having trouble with someone relationally, instead of communicating, you might have the habit of not saying anything at all, of maintaining long periods of quiet. But these long periods of quiet are not peaceful, they're full of seething rage. Now, I want you to understand, first of all, that you've been doing that out of love for others. Like, you don't want to hurt them. You know that, like, that if you were to let go, if you were to actually say the things you want to say, they would be extremely hurt. So there is wisdom in the kind of intense defensiveness that you have developed over the years. However, this might also be harming your relationships, in the sense that then other people don't have access to your inner world. You continuously feel that you can't be accepted by others because you're keeping such a huge part of yourself, away from your relationships, because you're protecting your relationships from you. But it also means that therefore you're not completely there, and other people don't get to access you in a holistic way. So I want you to understand both the wisdom of what you've been doing psychically, unconsciously, but also understand how it might be harming you, how it might be turning on yourself, this defense mechanism. You need to find other ways, pile 2, of both experiencing your aggression but also channeling it outward. Right now, this aggression is turned so much towards your own self. Quiet, don't say anything, don't say anything. You have to use such force on yourself to stay quiet that you end up, I think, even at the level of your personality, to express very, very little of who you really are inside. I'm guessing that most people in your life don't really know who you are, what you really think, how you really feel. This could be really good for your creative life though. Like, you may be someone who channels all of that then in some kind of creative pursuit, whether it's art, whether it's writing, whether it's even consuming media, but you have like very creative readings of things that you watch, you know. Yeah, what is coming through pile 2 is that you need to figure out different ways of engaging your aggression. It does not simply have to be, let's not express it. It can be all kinds of things. Let's understand it. Let's channel it. Let's play with it. Let's express some of it, you know. Let's role play. Let's work it out. Let's write about it. It can be all kinds of things. Like, you can cultivate a whole range of mechanisms of engaging it that can be pleasurable and meaningful. It does not just have to be shut up. Let's see more of your inner world in relation to your communication style. Soul retrieval. Medicine wheel. The child. You know, you've come into this lifetime with a lot of aggression. And as a child, you could have been very, very angry. And like many adults who don't understand angry children, the caregivers around you could have asked you to shut up, or, you know, like manage your anger instead of helping you learn to access it. I'm not trying to blame them or anything. I feel like it's genuinely hard for most adults to understand how to deal with anger in children. And now we still have many more resources for parenting. Maybe 30 years ago, your parents did not have access to those kinds of resources. So, not judging them at all, simply stating it as a fact of your early childhood history, where no one knew how to deal with your anger, and that sort of, you know, that sort of translated into you suppressing it or you not saying anything about it. But the truth here is that your aggression comes, like, you've come into this lifetime with it. And part of the reason that is, you've undergone a lot of difficult stuff, contexts of violation, violence in other lifetimes. In other lifetimes, you could have been very quiet, in a oppressed sense. Like, you could have been oppressed very violently, where there was no way that you could say something without being hurt even more. Like, you had to endure contexts of physical, emotional abuse, torture, violence. and there was no place for you to express it at all. It feels like really difficult stuff, pile 2. And you have entered this incarnation with the sole purpose of releasing that anger. But releasing that anger means that you have to allow yourself to feel it. You have to allow yourself to express it also. And I'm not saying express it in a way that harms others, but figure out ways of expression that do the work of discharging you, but also do the work of affirming you. Yeah, so having a kind of anger practice, for example, where you write everything out in your journal. Like, you don't have to say horrible, bitter things to others, but you can say them to yourself. You don't have to suppress it, because there might be a lot of truth in your anger. This is what you need to understand. The aggression that you've come into this lifetime with carries a lot of truth. You have been hurt, and your anger is a testimony of the soul that says, this was wrong. Whatever was done to me was wrong. It's not about judging others, it's not about harming others, it's about accepting that you were harmed. It's about coming to terms with other people's cruelty and brutality, other people's selfishness. In this lifetime, anger is supposed to be medicinal for you, but medicinal in a way that, the way bitter things are good for us, the way hot things are good for our body, like hot foods are good for our body, not in excess, but you need a combination of hot and cold, of bland and tasteful. It's like that. Anger is your medicine, pile 2, but you'll have to figure out a way to turn it into that. It is not by itself, like in its raw form. You're not going to experience it as medicinal. You'll only experience it as violent, as toxic. But you have to do the work in this lifetime of turning that toxicity into strength, turning that toxicity into medicine. And how do you do that? By listening to yourself, by allowing those angry voices to speak, because there's a lot of truth and a lot of wisdom there. And that is the way that you're going to be able to accept the very difficult nature of human reality. Because yes, we all want to believe in love and light, but the truth is that the more, if the world is full of love and light, then it's also full of shit. It's both together. And as you come to deeper terms with your anger, with the sacredness of your anger, with the truth of your anger, you will be able much better to accept the bothness of human reality. That it's love and it's also hate. That it is love and it's also cruelty. That it is love and it's also irredeemable selfishness. Now, you've been keeping yourself away from the truth of all of this because you think you're not going to be able to manage it. That you're going to become into, and possibly this is not all conscious, but I'm translating here psychically. It might feel like if I don't manage this, if I don't just hold my anger down, I am going to just explode onto others. I'm going to turn into the oppressor that who's hurt me. I'm going to be no different. And this is where your guides are intervening and saying that is not true. No one is naturally equipped to manage their anger. We all have to cultivate that management. And you can, pile two. You can. It's not something that we're born with. It's something we have to learn. And your guides are saying at the moment, they're encouraging you to go for it, to learn. Trust your anger. I feel like your communication style right now is so tied to the suppression of anger that there isn't much to say, because I feel like you just express very little of yourself. Wisdom keeper. A new perspective, study and learning. Absolutely. Pile to read things about anger. Like psychological studies of anger, aggression, where does it come from, what is its evolutionary purpose. Like, you may find a lot of stuff to help yourself as you read about anger. Read about case studies where psychologists, therapists have worked with angry children. Where did that anger come from? How did they deal with it? May help you a lot. Read child psychology for sure. Dancing with stones, movement, teamwork, partnership. Yes. I think if there is someone in your life that you can trust, do your anger work with them. And if it's not a person, if it's too much for the people in your life, definitely look into doing this work with a therapist. Creativity, yeah, creative expression, trust, or vision. That's what I really feel that whatever you've suppressed is already a beautiful, powerful source of creative expression. This might also be something that you want to develop further as a way of engaging with your anger, but also turning it into something beautiful and medicinal. So you might want to attend workshops, art workshops, writing workshops, where you are taught to access your emotions as, like a source of creativity. Like, one thing that happens to me when I'm angry is that I start imagining revenge scenarios. I start daydreaming about the other person suffering a mighty fall. I'm not proud of this at all, but it's natural. It happens. One day I was thinking, what if I turn this into a short story? I never did it, but this is just one example of how you can turn your angry feelings into a source of creativity. Because when you would write that short story, it's not just about you doing something positive. It's also about discharging those negative feelings. Maybe in writing that short story, you will also have a much better understanding of the other person. You will cultivate empathy and compassion for that other person and yourself. It's a very different way of dealing with our inner world when we let ourselves walk on the path of imagination. But yeah, so read about anger, dip into child psychology about anger, look into working with a therapist, and look into working creatively with your feelings. Pile 2. That's your message. I'm sending you a lot of love. All right, pile 3. Pile 3, elephant spirit, learn from the past. This feels like an energy that is still searching for their own voice. I mean, we all are in some sense, but I feel like here there's a strong sense that you don't know who you are. Or it could be a particular moment in your life when you're feeling lost, when you're in between careers or in between relationships, or something has recently happened that's made you feel like I just don't know where I stand. For example, we could have always thought a particular way politically, and then something collective happens that is so tragic, that is so massive in its proportions of harm, of death, that it changes us, that we start seeing that some of the beliefs that we held were out of a sense of false safety, out of a sense of privilege. And it like there has been recently a massive moment of unlearning for you. Massive. It feels like it's just wiped away a lot of things that you thought you knew, or even what you considered to be your perspective. I think you're questioning everything, but also it's beyond that. It's not just questioning things. It's like, I just don't know. I just don't know who I am anymore. I think in the past, your communication style was very confident, very, very confident. Like, you just knew what you thought, you expressed it, you were bold, you participated in things without being asked, like you were just professionally in all your contexts. Like, if there was something for you to do, you would do it. Maybe you were also extroverted, gregarious, like talking to everyone, being very friendly. Yeah, it feels a very good kind of friendliness. But I think that friendliness was also coming from a place where you considered everyone to be equal in some sense, which is not bad. Everyone is equal, but what we also have to understand is that the world does not treat us as such. Culturally, spiritually, we are all equal, and I think you've been rooted in that wisdom, but you might have failed to appreciate how at the cultural level that wisdom is constantly negated. So this specific, it feels like a person who's always thought, well, I don't believe in race, something like that. Like, well, I don't see color, for me everyone is the same. And that is amazing. Like, that means that you are rooted in the spiritual wisdom of oneness, but that wisdom is incomplete if we don't also take into account the culture of our world, where there is race. Race is very real. Racism is very, very real. And so just saying, I don't believe in it, it does not negate that reality. In fact, it kind of negates the experience of those who've been most impacted by the reality of race. Yeah, that's just a very specific thing. It might be true for you, but if not, consider it an example. Like, there has been some reality of difference that you haven't recognized so far, and it's suddenly recent events, something in your life has made you painfully aware of how something that you considered good in you, like, I don't see race, I don't consider people unequal to me, something that you considered a really good part of you, a really democratic, open, friendly, loving part of you, that has come into question. Okay. Again, not because you're wrong, not because we aren't all equal, but because everyone does not get to experience this equality. So I think that, yeah, like, your communication style in the past, very confident, very, just like, because you knew who you were. But currently you may experience a lot of hesitation in speaking, because you might think, well, I have to learn more, I have to research more. You're scared of saying the wrong thing perhaps, or even like just scared of repeating your mistakes. But what's happening is that there's an overcorrection that might be happening, where then you're not saying anything at all. Maybe, you don't feel confident, you don't feel like you are in a place to be friendly to others. Let's see more of your inner world. The serpent, absolutely. You're in a moment of massive shedding and transformation. The lower world, yeah. You're getting in touch with your own shadow. And also the shadow of humanity. Beauty way. Yeah, you're integrating truth with beauty. See, what was happening, pile 3, is that you had a very beautiful vision of the world. That vision, it is still beautiful. But what it was missing was in some sense, the truth of the world, which is ugliness, which is division, which is difference. And you might have held on to beautiful vision because somewhere inside of you, you were terrified of that ugliness, of that reality. And often that kind of terror comes from us when we are scared of our own shadows. We are scared of our own lower self. What is the lower self? Emotions like selfish, that's not an emotion, but basically psychic states. Selfishness, envy, greed, aggression towards others. You might be someone who finds it really difficult to accept within you that you could have hateful feelings towards others. And because that has been difficult for you to accept within yourself, you could have projected that outwards, that, well, I mean, not really, like, it's not as bad as we think it is. Everyone's not hateful. Not all men are misogynistic. Not all white people are racist. Not all, in my context, in India's context, not all upper caste people are casteist, something like that. You hear that cat? Yeah, like that snarling cat. You have been denying the reality of the snarling faces of humanity. And now I don't want to offer this to you as judgment. I think you judge yourself enough. I want to offer this to you as an insight into your own inner world. Okay? For you, it's really hard to accept that we can be this cruel to each other. And this is something that you may have to work on accepting, both within yourself and at the historical level. Now, you might be doing a lot of reading and research, in terms of social theory, but I encourage you to do some reading, some research also at the level of psychology. Okay, this is related somewhat also to pile 2. So if you were drawn to pile 2 as well as pile 3, there might be some messages for you there. This doesn't usually happen. My piles are not usually connected. So do some reading around like communities being cruel to each other, communal enmities in history, what kind of sadism drives that, what kind of violence, psychic violence drives that. But also I'd encourage you to do some reading around shadow work. So spiritual literature around shadow work, what does that mean, how to do it. I'm particularly thinking of this one book by Alberto Villoldo. I'll put the name in the description box, pile 3, where he describes a mirror exercise where you just sitting in front of the mirror and you're looking and looking and looking at the reflection until the image in the mirror starts changing. And you start seeing several different versions of yourself. Now, this is not going to happen at first go. You're going to have to repeat this exercise several times before you train the mind to relax and let the soul's eyes get activated. When you will do this, you will see shadow images of yourself that are monstrous, that are ugly, that are disgusting. And that's what the mirror exercise is about, which is to see the whole of ourselves, not just the good, loving parts, not just the parts that we can respect and we can look up to. The serpent is also in this deck about Kundalini. So Kundalini Yoga might also be a practice that you want to explore for yourself as a way of coming to terms with your shadow, coming to terms with violent energies in your own body and psyche. Hidden treasure, you're on the right track. Gift reveal, absolutely. Pile 3, this is whatever's happened, whatever moment of disillusionment, unlearning has happened, it's been the best thing that could happen. It's been amazing that it's happened. That the fact that you've allowed yourself to see some truth that you weren't ready to see in the past, that in itself tells us that you're ready for spiritual growth. So I understand that you feel very judgy towards yourself, and the world is also pretty judgy about people who don't see other people's oppression. Again, like for good reason, but now that you are open to seeing the world's truth better, you might do well to divert some of that judgment energy into actually, doing things, learning things, witnessing yourself, witnessing the reasons why you might have had trouble with these truths in the past. Basically, it's time for action instead of judgment, like divert all of those energies, divert all of that, passion into actually learning things about the world and yourself. The gateway, open doors, opportunities, right timing. As difficult as this is for many of us to accept, sometimes we're really just not equipped psychically in terms of our emotional resources for the truth. For whatever reason, you are now ready. You are ready now, pile 3. So again, like that, I feel very strongly that you're judging yourself so deeply, you feel so guilty, you feel so ashamed, and your guides are coming in to say, move through it, my dear, move through it. There is so much good that you can do. There is so much that you can now learn about yourself and the world. Stop wasting your time and stop wasting your energy in judging yourself, because this is what we're here for. We are here to learn from the past. We are here to learn. None of us are expected to come into this life all wise. Singing stones, transmit your vibration, use your voice. That's the thing. Like, there is so much potential here for you to actually intervene the way you used to in the past, the way you were so bold and confident and friendly in the past. You will recover that friendliness, pile 3. You will recover that openness to others. Once you get over this fear of making mistakes, once you get over the shame of not having seen the truth in the past in all of its colors, there is so much that you can do with your voice. Sure, there is going to be a period of learning, there is going to be a period of retraining, there is going to be a period of you just coming to terms with what you did not know in the past. But once you accept that, like, we're not all supposed to just know things. Like, it takes a while to cultivate certain perspectives, and that is okay. You know, even if there have been instances in the past where you might have harmed others, it is time for you to experience your past self with compassion. Sure, we want to hold ourselves accountable, but accountability doesn't mean yelling at ourselves. It doesn't mean slapping ourselves. It doesn't mean turning on ourselves and saying cruel things. Accountability can mean changing. Accountability can mean wanting to listen to that past self, why it did the things that it did. Yeah, so the more you understand your own reasons for holding on to the perspective that you did, the more easily you're going to be able to move through it. Yeah, this is not to say let it all go, it's all okay, but this is to say that getting okay with what you did involves really opening yourself up to that past self, what it thought and why it thought the way it did. Okay, this is a difficult one, pile 3. I'm glad you're here though. I'm glad that you are consciously participating in this project of learning about yourself, of doing better as a human being in this world. But that should involve being better even towards yourself. Remember that, don't forget that. Okay? Being better towards yourself, being compassionate towards yourself, and giving yourself time. Giving yourself time. This is not going to happen overnight. Like, whatever way in which you've been used to thinking about the world, it's not going to change overnight. You have to give yourself time to get there. And once you do, you're going to find that there are many things that you can do with your voice. And I hope you do them. I hope that you find it in yourself to make a difference in the world, because you can. I'm sending you a lot of love, pile 3.